Right. Right, awesome. Well, welcome everybody to Future Work Scotland. Delighted to be doing this bonus session. This is a bonus session. We've got another one for you in August, but this is a special event. I will introduce our good friend in a moment. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sathpal, Singh. Everybody calls me Sath. I'm your host for the session. I'm joined by my co-organizer and co-host, Donald Henderson. Many of you have been here before, so you do know the drill. Just to remind you all, we do have a code of conduct. In short, we simply ask that you're respectful to one another, want everyone to have an awesome time. And if you are first in with us, very warm welcome to you. Q&A, I think we're going to keep it quite informal. Erin's going to do a brand new talk that she's prepared and she's never done it anywhere, so we feel pretty privileged to be hosting her for this unveiling. And yeah, you use the chat. I think we'll keep it informal. Erin will keep us right. And we'll do our usual community shout outs at the end. And of course, you know, Erin Randall's our guest speaker, a lady who almost needs no introduction. And has done all sorts of things. She's a well-respected and recognized organizational proactive coach. She's spoken here before, so, you know, we love it when Erin comes back and joins us. She's also a great supporter of this community and this group. She was also one of the co-founders of the Agile coaching circles. That's awesome. I really need to get along to one of them at some point. Hopefully she won't hold that against me. And today, Erin's going to be, as I say, introducing this new talk, which I'm really excited about, which is a fusion of some of Avery's work. Erin's thinking around a very important topic around time management. Some of it's derived from a very old, famous Harvard Business Review talk, which I read fairly recently. So very excited to see what she's got in store for us. So without further ado, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you for letting me come back again, but also thank you for coming in for a special bonus session of the Future of Work Scotland. Like Sath said, I have spoken here a couple of times before. And what I really like about this forum is that it's open and congenial, and it's so easy to come in and really work with new material. So before I get started tonight, everyone, I wanted to kind of give you fair warning that I don't view this as, you know, me getting up and just simply teaching and there's very little interaction with everyone else. What I'm hoping for here is, yes, there will be small bits of teaching, you know, as I, you know, talk around ideas and what's coming up for me as I think about something, but I'm also hoping for a much deeper facilitated conversation between all of us, because I think there's so much learning in groups that it would be a shame to not harness that. So instead of keeping questions for the end, you know, I'm going to be posing questions to, you know, this group here as we go along. And I really do hope for interaction and feedback and frankly, everyone playing in as we do this tonight. So if that was not what you were hoping you'd signed up for, I completely understand. If you want to abandon ship and go have dinner with your family, I completely get that. But I also hope that you might stay here and we can learn with one another. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right, and I'm hoping everyone can go ahead and see that. Looks good. And I'll let you guys handle who's coming over there. All right, so I do call this talk, I call this one monkey business. You know, it's about responsibility, boundaries, and how to hold the line. All right, and why is this? Oh, there it is. So there are 3 learning outcomes that I'm hoping for all of you from this work. Number 1 is how to learn to spot the monkey. And if you don't want to, how to not pick that monkey up. Number 2, discover how systemic roles and boundaries support the system. Okay. And by system, I mean, you know, in which you work, okay, in which you live. All right. And then thirdly is stepping into Christopher Avery's responsibility process to understand your relationship to responsibility. Okay. And so let's check in on those at the end as we close this up tonight. We're kind of see where we landed on these and the like. All right. So as Sath said, boy, that's really hard to say. Yeah, we're just going to let that go and keep moving forward before I find another tongue twister. My name is Erin Randall, and I do have lots of initials. I'm a certified organizational relationship and system coach, and I'm actually also on the faculty for CRR Global. So for those of you thinking that you might one day want to take some of those ORSC courses, you might bump into me as one of the people facilitating and holding the space for that learning there. I'm also a holder of an IC Agile expert level rating in Agile coaching, and that does make it easier for me to also host many of those Agile coaching circles there. All right. And then thirdly, I am also a coactive coach. I did that work through CTI, and that means I'm really holding that line there on doing individual one-on-one work, kind of even beyond Agile on that side there. So we do hope to see many of you over at the Agile coaching circles, because this is a place for you to practice your Agile coaching skills. We have 5 circles around the world, one for North America time zones, one for Europe time zones, one for Africa, and then one on the East Coast of Australia and one on the West Coast of Australia. You are welcome at any and all of these coaching circles. It doesn't matter if you live in that region or not, because these are simply a safe place for you to practice those coaching skills. And if anybody wants to like ping Wayne on the side and say, hey, Wayne, what do you learn there? Because Wayne is at those quite a bit. And we really appreciate that. Back last time, I think we made him go into the middle so that he was the coachee. If anyone knows Patrick Stewart, I would really love a personal invite, because it is my goal in life to be his 5th wife. My husband supports this. He's like, if you can marry Patrick Stewart, knock yourself out. But I do a lot of work with research teams, with organizations, with systems, but also with one-on-one people, coaches as well, trying to help them find their own inner amazing. And by the way, my cousin and I always have this thing about taking photos with pigs around the world, which is why you'll sometimes find a photo with me with a pig. Okay. So that being said, who's got the monkey? All right. And I'm curious, who here actually has read that old William Onken, Donald Wass article called Time Management, Who's Got the Monkey? Has anyone read that besides Sath, who read it? Ken has. All right. What about that article sticks with you? And I'm hoping everybody can come off mute here. What about that article sticks with you?
I think the language is a little dated on it. That's for sure.
The language is dated. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to be, unadopted monkey should be fed or shot. And you're like, well, the PETA side of that is really not so good on that. Okay. So the language is dated, but what else?
Yeah. It's also, there's less of a servant leadership. It's very clear. It's boss manager employee relationship. And I think those lines thankfully have blurred over time. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously I think the intent behind it is being able to accept work that, is worthwhile accepting in your role and intent, and the organizational lead versus, clearly identifying that work as being something that somebody else needs to work on. So it's maintaining that boundary.
Okay, maintaining a boundary. And Sath, is there anything that you want to add on that?
The only thing I would add is I think the original article dates back to the 70s. But I think a lot of the ideas that it covers still hold true. So that's in and of itself quite staggering. I think we still wrestle with the core problem that it identifies with that. I think I deal with that on a daily basis.
Well, I must confess that I have read that article, and it is an old one. It does date back to the 1970s, but it is a personal favorite of mine just because it does make it clear about when something is entering your system and how you might want to choke that system off. Okay. I do agree with Ken that, is it Ken or Kenneth? Which do you prefer?
You can use Ken.
Ken? Okay. It is a bit dated, kind of like Gary Chapman's book on the 5 love languages. It's got a bit of sexism. The roles are, pretty defined there and the like. But I do return to this article time and again, and it's really entered the vernacular of some of the systems that I work with, simply because it is so clear. All right. You can see the monkey leave one person, you can see it enter another system, and you can see the impact of being a choke or a bottleneck in other people's work systems and the like. So whenever I'm coaching in organizations, you'll hear me ask systems, where's the monkey? Who's got the monkey in this instance? And they're like, oh, because once they begin to see it, and it does sort of become a bit of a joke amongst all of us. They're like, Erin, what do you have against monkeys? One organization actually found this screaming monkey and gave it to me as a gift, which it was a puppet, not an actual screaming monkey, because that would have been a little hard to take home and the like, but it really helped them to see where things were beginning to bog down. All right. So if you haven't read the article, I encourage you to just type in "who's got the monkey" over in your browser at some point and go ahead and read that. It's a quick read. You'll have it done in 5 minutes. And it really does help you to see things clearly on some of those regards and the like. Okay. So in a blog post that I originally wrote about this piece, I gave the example of working in an organization, and I had a phone call one afternoon from a man in a different department. And he wanted to talk about Agile metrics and different things and the like, and case studies and where he might be able to find things and the like. And at the end of the call, he's like, okay, so you're going to research this some more and get back to me. And everyone, I swear, I saw the monkey smile at me as it prepared to leap from this man's back over onto me. And I responded, I said, no. Okay. I've sent over some case studies and I've sent over some metrics and I've sent over some reading, but this monkey needs to stay with you. Okay. This is your responsibility, not mine. And you could have heard a pin drop on the other side of that call, because he was fully expecting that I would just happily pick this up for him and go do his work. And when I said no, it was a bit of a surprise. And I'm curious, how many people see something like this happen in their own organizations, where someone else, it's their thing, and all of a sudden they're trying to hand it off to you? How many people see that? And if I don't see every hand go up, I'm going to be like, you might want to rethink that. So what happens to you when someone else tries to hand off their work to you? What happens? And anyone can answer. Please don't all be shy and hold back.
Your own work goes to blazes. Sorry. So your own work goes to blazes.
Work goes to blazes? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And for those of us, could you help me understand what you mean when you say work goes to blazes?
Well, basically what it means is that your own work schedule goes out the window, and you find yourself having to pick up the tabs on somebody else as well as your own work. And that just means that the quality of your work dives, and the potential for failure becomes quite great, actually.
Yeah. And by the way, now that I think about it, I completely understand what you mean when work goes to blazes. It's just perhaps a more polite way than I've ever said that. But I'm gonna pick that up and take that going forward. It goes to blazes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden you're handling someone else's crap, not your own.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, why am I not getting anything done? Because I'm working on your work stream, not mine. Yeah. Yep. What else happens?
I think there's an immediate reaction on the receiving end of either anger or guilt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what do you mean by that, Wayne?
Well, if somebody tries to give me their work, it's either like, what are you doing? Like, why are you being so lazy to pass this off onto me? I'm not your guy to carry this for you, and I'm mad now that you've asked me to do this. Or it could be, if there's a bit of a power differential there, that now I feel somehow guilted into taking this. I can't say no, and I've got to do it. I feel pressured to do it because I'm going to be guilty if I don't.
Wayne, you're going to love the responsibility process section of this talk then. Okay. This was meant for you and the like. Okay. Sorry. We've heard some really good points brought forward here about what happens when you pick up someone else's monkey. Okay. And it's a really good thing, to kind of that vernacular there. Am I picking up a monkey? What's the monkey I've got? Always be thinking about that. So I actually published a blog post last night, and it was about roles and role nausea in a system. but I specifically did pick up a monkey that was not mine. And that was basically cleaning up my parents' house here in Montana this summer. And no, it wasn't a monkey I picked up. This was a silverback gorilla. And in fact, it may have been a pride of gorillas. Okay. Or I'm not certain what you call a, group of gorillas, but that entire thing, being mindful about what you're picking up and when and why, for what is the reason that you're doing this. One of the questions that I did pose in my original blog post about this, who's got the monkey, was what is the difference between being helpful and being useful? What is the difference between being helpful and being useful?
Can I say something? I think that being helpful is basically doing what somebody asks you to do, and being useful is doing what you think is right.
And that feels like it has a lot of freight behind it. Can you help me understand more what you mean there?
Well, basically, if you are in help mode and you want to do something for someone, then obviously doing what they want you to do is a good idea, because otherwise it's not going to be helpful. But being helpful to that person is not necessarily always useful to that person or useful to yourself. You may well be teaching them habits which are not bad, as in passing the monkey, and you may be teaching yourself bad habits, as in picking up the monkey. So it might not be useful.
I think that was explained very succinctly and very well. Thank you for that. That gave some really wonderful points there. Did everyone grab the gist of what he was saying? And by the way, I can't see you when you are speaking. Nice person who just did that. So if you could give yourself a shout out, that would be great.
Cool. I'm Michael from Cape Town. Michael from Cape Town. I'll show myself sometime.
Okay. And by the way, hey, Rudy, thank you for holding down Central America. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Erin. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Okay. Yeah, but Michael did a really great job of explaining being helpful and being useful. And I think that's an important point for all of us to pick up and really start to think about, how do you want to apply that in your own work and the like? Okay. So I want to keep moving forward because I'm realizing that, oh, hold on. There we go. Management time. Oh, I should have forwarded the slide and I didn't. That was what we just talked about there. Who's got the monkey and the like? All right. And really do y'all go back and read that article. If you haven't, it makes things very clear. Okay. All right. Holding the line, boundaries. All right. So when I think about personal boundaries, they're simply the lines that we draw for ourselves in terms of our level of comfort around others. Okay. And I think of good boundaries. They should be respectful, clear, and consistent. And I'm hoping that boundaries are not punitive or hesitant or occasional. Okay. And the reason we start thinking about boundaries is, you might not want physical contact with someone. All right. You don't want to hug that great aunt when you were a small child because she might have scared you a little bit. Okay. They might also be around verbal interactions, not wanting someone that someone that you work with to speak down to you in a way that makes you feel belittled or small. All right. Or around personal space, choosing not to have others in your home when you aren't there. It can be as simple as that. Okay. And boundaries they generally fall into a few different categories around emotional, protecting our own emotional well-being, around physical, our physical space, not wanting someone to come too close to you. They make you feel uncomfortable. All right. Sexual, protecting needs and our safety sexually, workplace, protecting our ability to do our work without interference or drama, material, protecting our personal belongings. If you're always trying to go look for the pen that someone else is stealing, after a while, you're going to be like, dude, boundaries on the pen. I need those. All right. And time, protecting the use or the misuse of our time. And oddly, I think of all those of the 6 types that I just mentioned there, the one that I am most maniacal about is time. It's the one thing I can't get more of. All right. And if I suspect that someone is ever not being respectful of my time or not using it well, I really have to watch myself because I get triggered on that because that's the one thing I always need more of and the like. Okay. So thinking about boundaries there. All right. Does anybody remember that old, 1990s movie, Jurassic Park, the first one with the velociraptors? And remember, they had that gamekeeper, and he talked about the velociraptors and how those things would test the boundaries. They'd always over there be testing the fences and the like. Okay, so a lot of people are like that. They're always going to be testing your boundaries, testing for weaknesses, testing for ways that they might get through. You'll notice up there in this nice diagram or this image that I have, the person's trying to draw that, and there's the monkey going, oh, look, I'm just going to come over right now. All right. So when we think about boundaries and systemic roles, I want to bring up one of the RSI, the Relationship Systems Intelligence principles, and it's this. Relationship systems rely on roles for their organization and execution of functions. And for those of you that have either done some of the ORSC training or will one day do some of that work, you're going to run into that a lot. Okay. We think about, systemic roles because a system, it's an interconnecting network of separate working parts. All right. So think about your body is an example of a system. Your family is a system. If you do any volunteer work or you're part of a nonprofit, that is a different type of system. And if you work with other people, if you're working within an organization, that is another type of system as well. Okay. But systems are not simply a collection of individuals, and behavior does not stand alone. Behavior is always in context to other behavior. All right. What affects one of us affects all of us because you cannot be separated from your system. It's part of being whole. All right. And also, when you think about systems, nothing exists by itself or solely by itself. Nothing is in a vacuum. Right? We're always in relationship to others. Okay. So how's this landing so far? I'm just checking in with people. Wayne's okay. Michael down in Cape Town, you doing okay? Because I can't see you. I'm just guessing.
Just fine, thank you.
Okay. All
Erin,
right. So please.
I was thinking, what could be the first step to set boundaries in a toxic culture or in a toxic group? Of course, it requires a lot of braveness or courage, of course.
Okay.
But I was thinking about that. What happens if we find a toxic culture or a toxic group? And the first step is, yeah, exactly. In order to grow, to start to be an authentic team.
All right. So you're kind of, you're prefacing what will be coming when we start talking about responsibility process. All right. But I want to take this question back to the group here. All right. So everyone, how do we set boundaries in toxic environments? Am I summing up that question like you want, Rudy? How do we set boundaries in toxic environments?
Yeah. How can we start to set boundaries?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a phrase that I go back to. I remember hearing Lisa Adkins say, what is the up with which you will not put? Okay. What is the up with what you will not put, or what will you not put up with is another way of saying that. Okay. So Rudy, you kind of hear, you're like, it's coming in. You're like, oh. You're like, dude, this is not working. This is not healthy. I don't like this. Okay. So do you remember me saying just a little bit ago, what are boundaries? They are clear. They are consistent. Okay. And they're respectful. Okay. Of both the other person, but as well as me. All right. So it's you identifying where that boundary is for you, being, okay, this is acceptable, but this is not. All right. And you're also referencing, you might give feedback to that person saying, all right. And we can talk about feedback some other time. Do you not have the digital cards on that? Because I can give them to you if you don't, because I have cards. I have cards on everything.
Well, I have the cards, yes, and we have received the feedback module as well here.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it's just both there. So I think part of it, boundaries are going to be different for every single person. They're not going to be uniform. All right. Some people may have similar boundaries. Some people may not, and the like. But you need to be responsible for your own boundaries and knowing where that line is. If that behavior is not working for you, how do you want to resolve it? Okay. And so going back to that question about what would be helpful and what would be useful, how helpful if I say, Rudy, and I'm picking on you, Donald, but Donald's behavior, that's not serving you. Okay. I'm helping you by identifying. It's like, so Rudy, what is the behavior that you want from Donald? Okay. And that's starting to delve over into useful. Okay. Because you're identifying it then, and you're stepping into owning it. Okay. So I do have questions for people here about what roles show up in your systems. What roles show up in your systems? People are kind of wishing that they'd be like, I wish I'd read the fine print that she was going to have an interactive talk, not just up here. Yeah.
So in my environment, I have product owners, I have team members, I have functional leaders, I have managers, I have project management office leader, such roles.
Okay. And Wayne, I see you raising your hand too.
Yeah, I was just thinking, first of all, a question. Do you, your quote from, was it RSI?
RSI, it's one of the principles. Yeah.
Yeah, the system needs roles. Does the system really need roles?
So is it a system if it does not have roles? Because if a system relies on roles for organization and the execution of functions, is it a system if it does not have roles?
I don't know. Can you execute function without having a defined role? Well, I guess maybe I'm thinking defined roles maybe naturally, and this is what I wanted to say too. What roles have I seen outside of the typical agile roles that are described in the Scrum Guide? I see things that kind of happen organically, like usually in a group, a person emerges as the leader and has the respect of the other people in the group. So then the leader would be a role that happens maybe without definition.
So Wayne brings up a really good point. What roles are there that might not be defined? So was it Eileen brought up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was me.
Okay, good. It's always fun to try to identify voices when you don't see pictures light up. It's always like, yay. All right. You brought up really great examples of formally defined roles. And Wayne's bringing up the concept of roles that might not have, the formal backing there, but they emerge within systems. And this is what we're talking about when you're starting to pay attention to the emotional field of a system. You're starting to really pay attention there. You might have a leader. You might have someone who's a caretaker. Someone might be a hero. Okay. Starting to think how systems shift, as people occupy those roles. But why do we also want to talk about monkeys and about boundaries here? What's important about that? Everyone's like,
yeah.
So what's coming up here when you think about that?
Yeah, I think about personal work in process. I think about work flowing.
Yeah.
Then, I also think about, to some degree, respecting each other's ability to get work done and everybody's needs and what they gravitate towards doing and what they're effective at doing or enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of pieces of that, but I think all of that plays into what you're talking about in terms of explicit and non-explicit roles.
Yeah. I really like that you brought up, respect around, and also everyone. I have a large German Shepherd here in the office with me who's suddenly like making noise like, hey, I might want to go outside and play. So if she barks, I really apologize. She's normally pretty good, but she might, today. Thinking about systems, how do you show respect? It's like, hey, I understand you're under the gun and trying to get this work done. Okay, how can I support you? but also, I'm going to need this from you going forward. And so really starting to kind of be like, what's this? What's not this? I guess this is one reason I'm such a big fan of that Agile pillar of transparency. Okay. Here's what I'm working on, and here's how I've ordered this, and here's how I prioritize this to match up against those OKRs and the like. Okay. What's going on here? So people aren't just, trying to guess if this is a good time to approach you about something. What do you need to make clear to your system too? Okay. And that's why
I think it's also, again, it's also that WIP piece, the work in process piece at the team level. It may very well be that my boundary is not to accept this particular type of work, unless the team is overloaded, in which case, you know what, I'm going to step in, but I'm going to be really explicit and clear about this. I'm going to step in because I know that we're overloaded on this. And when I'm done, I'm stepping back out.
Right. And notice everyone was making the universal I-shaped versus T-shaped, aspect there. And Ken did a really good job. It's like, okay, I normally don't do this, but I really am in this instance, being mindful of the team, of that system there, and going in and doing this, but then I'm going to step back, making clear when I'm crossing that boundary, when I'm letting that work into my system, and when it needs to come back. Yeah. Thanks for that.
And being explicit about why I'm doing it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Yeah. Okay. So let's keep moving forward. This brings us to, I did pull up a lovely common traits of rigid, porous, and healthy boundaries. Okay, I'm going to let everyone read kind of what's in each column on his or her own, but I'm also curious, do people recognize themselves somewhere in this diagram? And is it strictly in one column, in one area, or do you recognize bits of yourself in all different areas? I'm going to ask you to drop in the chat kind of where you think you might wind up on this, or if you're feeling particularly brave, shouting it out. So I, for one, know that I fall, I think, somewhere between porous and healthy. Some days I'm a little bit more porous than I would like to be. Other times, I'm a little bit healthier than I think I give myself credit for. And we'll talk about responsibility here in a moment. And what comes up there. But where do people see themselves in this? And I'm just going to ask you to shout it out because it's easier for me to hear you that way.
So, Aline speaking. I think I have a pattern, but I think depending on the situation, I can be the three of them. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I would see myself more in the middle with a tendency to healthy one, but I would definitely find also work situation where I have more rigid.
And thank you for that honesty and that transparency there. That was really honest. Thank you for that. Other voices that want to be heard.
I'd like to think I have a lot of the healthy boundaries, but I do see some tendencies toward a few of the others. And I'm just wondering, some of them almost feel like the difference between introvert and extrovert. Does that have anything to do with boundaries?
I've not thought about that, Wayne. But kind of when the first crack at that, I want to push back on it because I've known lots of introverts that have great healthy boundaries and extroverts that, are rigid. It's just that we associate with, extroverts, having more close relationships with people, and introverts might have fewer. Okay. So I would push back on that at first blush, but it's also something I want to be clear that I haven't really researched much or looked into.
Sure. Just struck me as I'm reading through the list.
Yeah, it's a good thought, though. Others. Donald, where do you see yourself?
Let's do the mathematician's analysis. I was going to say, let's do the mathematician's analysis, because since I'm counting away, I'm going to say about 33% of the rigid boundaries apply, about 50% of the porous boundaries apply, and maybe 60 or 80. I can't quite decide the healthy. I'll give myself 70. Technically, spectrum. Let's do a framework assessment. There you go.
You must be a lot of fun in real life, Michael. Yeah. So the point, I think we all delve, put a toe in and out of these at different points and the like, and it's really thinking about it. And at the end of this talk today, I'm going to encourage you to find feedback or accountability partners, but it might also be someone to say, hey, Sath, what are your boundaries telling you right now? Where are you at on this term? And saying, oh, looks like I'm really, in rigid at the moment. Okay. How could you open those boundaries up? What would it be like to be more expansive? All right. But we'll come back to that later. I just wanted to put this out there as it's like, hey, kind of self-assessment there. Okay.
So could I ask a question at this point? And it's Lindsay here, in case you can't see on screen. So what do we do in a situation? So Sath, I'm just going to pick on you, my friend, but Sath's got really rigid boundaries and I'm totally the antithesis. There's nothing wrong with his boundaries and there's nothing wrong with my boundaries, but together they clash. Okay. And that's kind of what I tend to experience in the workplace. Is I might be in a place of I've gone on a journey and I'm in this place, but actually I'm coming up against someone, or it could be a different way. Somebody could be oversharing, which might make me feel uncomfortable. Sure. And it's that kind of interplay that is, it's fascinating, isn't it? But how so we do that. I'm sure you'll come on to that.
Tools that come to mind. I'm sorry, I spoke over were you complete?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Okay. So I have two tools that come to mind thinking about how to work together with this. All right, I'm going to mention them, but I'm also going to throw it open to the rest of the group as a whole if anybody else is having something come up for them. So if you have someone with more rigid boundaries and you have someone who's tending more towards porous or healthy and the like, one way that you might begin to address this is through a designed alliance. How do we agree to work together, to be together? Okay, to bring that out into the open. You can ask, two questions as kind of getting started there. What do we need to thrive in our work? Okay, and how do we want to be when things are difficult? All right, and so by asking those two questions right there, you're starting to get that out into the open. All right, and you can begin to address this. And so, okay, what would really help my work, and I'm going to pick back on Sath, who's apparently very rigid boundaries. I've always thought so. I'm teasing you, Sath. All right. So Sath, when you do this, it's really hard for me. The impact that is I feel closed. I'm not able to feel like I'm collaborating with you. How can we do this together? Okay. So and the second tool that's bringing up right there is, really starting to address with feedback a bit so that person can understand what that is. Where you're coming from, and to stand a bit in empathy. Okay. Does that make sense? But there are lots of other tools that I think that we could use here too. We might be working around alignment. We're aligning on the same issue rather than coming at it as loggerheads. We're facing something together. Okay. We could do empathy work around that. We could do some lands work in the geography process and the like. Okay. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. And our other tools, other ways to address this, what's coming up for others here?
Hi, can you hear me okay? My name is Pritam.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, when you look at the audience that we have, we're all kind of middle management, mature individuals. I sometimes wonder about something similar to the previous question where you've got two individuals that have these differing boundaries. And I'm particularly thinking of situations where you have maybe a young medic, newly qualified, is coming up against a consultant, and similarly with a newly qualified lawyer, and these kind of really diverse power relationships. It can be very difficult to draw the boundaries. And I'm wondering what tools we could use in these situations where you've got really very new, junior, extremely junior, coming up against really quite senior people that have been doing the roles for 20 odd years, it can be incredibly difficult for these younger individuals to draw these boundaries. And I was wondering what tools you could suggest.
What would it be like to try mentoring to apparently I can't say that word today, specifically having the older, more experienced person, work from a mentoring perspective there and fully standing in that mentoring arc, not falling into the trap of giving advice or saying specifically what to do. That would be one way that I might begin to address that.
It's very difficult in the kind of,
it is,
especially the medical and the legal professions, where you have these guys who are at the top of their tree, and to try to get them to change this very deep ingrained
right
behavior.
But that's also asking them to step into self-management. So among the systems that I coach a lot of faculty members at tier 1 universities here in the United States. And these are people who are very respected. They receive major grants. They're full professors in their field and they're highly published. All right. But they're also have undergraduate students and they have graduate students and the like. So oftentimes I wind up teaching what coaching and mentoring arcs are so that they're mindful of when to step into that position and when to step into a different, when they want to coach, when do they want to mentor.
I think that kind of requires a third-party intervention, and very often, even the whole notion of a third-party intervention for a new graduate in a law firm is just would not be possible. So really, I'm looking at what somebody that's on the receiving end of these inappropriate boundaries, shall we say, can do for themselves rather than requiring an intervention from somebody else.
Okay, what about impact feedback then in that moment? So Wayne, when you told me to do X, Y, and Z, and frankly screamed at me to do that work, the impact on me was that I shut down. I'm not able to hear what's being asked there. Okay, what is something else that we can do? So, and is it Pratam? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Pratam? I think it is a bit of retraining and recoaching up at that level and to go in and push at that, because I have worked at that level to quite some degree. And I've seen quite a bit of success in helping. And I've not worked in legal. Okay. But getting full professors to shift how they work with people on their research teams. Okay. And sometimes it's coaching then into the research teams to give them that learned muscle memory of different ways to do some of that work. To say, hey, this is working for me. This isn't working for me. Okay. I'm happy to touch base with you more on this if you like, because I'm noticing that I've got 12 minutes. Beatrice, you are fine. There's no crying. Sorry, y'all.
Sorry, I'm taking up too much of your time.
It's okay. All right. So I did want to talk briefly here about Christopher Avery and the responsibility process. So in my own reading, I notice more and more that I'm over with the behavioral scientists and doing a lot of reading with Katie Milkman, Richard Thaler, Cass Sunstein, working on how do we nudge systems into different types of behavior. Okay. Avery popularized what he calls his responsibility process. And it's a behavioral science framework that helps people to see how their own responsibility works to do one of the following. Okay. Can either keep them stuck where they are or can help move them forward. All right. We're going to talk here about 4 different building blocks. Always like, why is that not coming up? Hold on just a sec. It's not coming up. Now it's coming up. Okay. We're going to talk about 4 different building blocks into responsibility. And yes, I realize that there are 6 blocks there, but we're really just going to be talking about blame, justify, shame, and obligation here today. And Rudy, you can, I know that you've seen some of this before, but it never hurts to have a recap. It's also fun.
Right.
All right. So when we think about blame, all right, we're holding others at fault for something that affects us. All right. This summer, I've spent my summer, and I call it rage cleaning my parents' home. Okay. And we're talking 45 years of veterinary practice, 45 years of farming, 2 academic careers, and the like. All right. But I was pissed off because, you know what? I'm cleaning out their house. I'm cleaning up their mess. All right. And I was, that coworker that I mentioned, I was angry at them because I spent time researching their issue rather than getting onto my own work, pushing the blame onto them. I picked up their monkey. I gave my power away. And then I'm not acting responsibly. I'm not stepping into responsibility. Okay. That's when you push it off on someone else. All right. So justify. All right. In justification, I use excuses for what things being the way that they are. How many of you might have heard, oh, that's just the way that we do things around here. There's no use trying to change that. Excuses remove responsibility from behavior. They justify that lack of ownership. Okay. In other words, external forces, something else out there, someone else out there, that person needs to change. So in justification, I've removed myself from responsibility. Okay. I've taken myself out of that. It's always going over there. Shame. Oh, good. Our old friend shame. One of my personal ones that I'm very good at. All right. But don't you want to help me? A nice colleague, someone who's conscientious, they're good to work with, they would help me do this. Right. So shame can be a powerful motivator or demotivator. Okay. Blaming oneself, which can be felt as guilt, that could weigh me down. Or I can remove myself from shame and refuse to pick up that monkey. Okay. And I'm like, no, that's not mine. I need to leave that where it is. This belongs with you. And for fun, I might, ask people to consider how gender roles and gender norms play into this. All right. And then lastly, let's talk about obligation. So have you ever heard someone say, I don't have a choice in this. I'm powerless. I'm only doing what I'm obligated to do. Okay. Yes, sometimes we do work that we are not enthusiastic about, or sometimes we don't want to do, but we can choose our mindset and how we approach that work. Responsibility is a choice, not an obligation. And everyone, I'll be fully transparent here. I blew it this summer. I did. I blew responsibility this summer. Okay. I've been pissed off about cleaning out this house. I've been asking for 10 years for it to be done, but it hasn't been done. And I kind of felt that if I didn't do this now, it certainly wasn't ever going to get done. And it was never going to get any easier. So I did. I spent the entire summer gutting of what was going on. I mean, we're talking major truckloads of stuff have gone to donation. I've personally taken 3 truckloads of books to the library. I've sent 2 truckloads of, electronics recycling in. And frankly, there's been 2 packed dumpster loads of just trash I've taken out. But I've been angry about this. I've been angry about it. And the thing is, if I'd stepped into responsibility, what would my attitude have been? What would my attitude have been?
I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but one way it could have been is, I'm doing a favor for my future self so that I don't have to deal with this when I'm also dealing with grief.
Yes. And it's like you read my mind on that. That was one day because I watched people struggle with this sort of thing. They're trying to grieve and they're also throwing shit out, because my husband's father also passed away in May, and I've listened to him do this work as he's trying to grieve. Okay. Yeah. What else comes up here? How else could I have stood in responsibility?
I think it's ultimately understanding that it is your choice about how you respond and how you engage with it. That's the tough part, right?
I feel so seen.
Yeah, it's like, how do you catch sooner game, right?
Yeah.
Right? How do we turn that into being free, responsible, not choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll use that exact phrase. How am I free, responsible, and a choice? This summer I was really mad at my dad because I'm out there holding his backpack from the 1960s. and he wants to go down memory lane with it, but I'm covered in mouse crap and dust and grease, and I've just had it because I've wanted this crap gone for 10 years, and I'm standing there holding it. And he's like, oh, but I wanted to. And I'm like, I do not give a crap right now about your trip. And it's hard, y'all, because I'm wanting to highlight the fact that it's one thing to talk about this, but it's one thing to actually do this in the moment when it matters. And as I go back and I reflect, how am I free, responsible, and a choice? I chose to clean this out. No one else asked me to. I did it. Okay. And how would I do it differently next time? Well, I probably would have read my notes on responsibility.
Yeah. And if we want to reframe that, here we've learned that the responsibility is a state of mind, right? It's a mindset to approach things and situations. Of course, we're going to have those voices that wolf in our minds, rah, 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 and with shame, justification, obligation. But this process also invites us to feel powerful and to feel freedom to choose, right? How to approach them, and maybe to avoid grief in the future, right? And of course, it needs like a common ground that is this invitation that feedback and boundaries and tough conversations are the expectation, right? Yeah. So if you're working here in an organization, I need to set boundaries about what can I do and what do I expect from others, and how can I avoid to sleep on other processes, right? To not assume that. Yes, because the responsibility process invites us to do that to better perform, right? To work in more democracy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So everyone, I know that we are rapidly coming up on time here. Ooh, I have a total of 4 minutes.
No, you've still got half an hour.
Oh, I do?
Yeah, you do go back to time.
Oh, well, heck. Also, I'm really glad then that I canceled that coaching conversation that I was supposed to be holding in 4 minutes, and I pushed that to next week. Excellent.
There you go.
I didn't screw up there. All right. So we could handle this portion 2 different ways. You know, if you wanted to go out into breakout rooms and work with a partner, we could do that, or we could do this work here as a group and the like. And I'm curious, you know, I know that I sometimes have not wanted to go to breakout rooms at night, but I also want to have that option there in case someone does.
I prefer the entire group.
I don't know. Hearing a lot of group. Okay. So as a coach, I must confess that I do go to questions as kind of the foundation for my work. And in thinking about everything that we've spoken about here today, the self-reflection piece, okay? This to me feels important and real and kind of the crux of what we're talking about here. So if we're talking about monkeys and boundaries and responsibility, you know, then asking myself, what is my role in this? Okay. And that takes a lot of courage, I think, for anyone to ask him or herself or themselves, you know, what is my role in this? Okay. And then owning it and stepping up into that. You know, if I say yes to this, to what am I saying no? Okay. And that kind of is like, I can do this, but I can't do this. If I'm letting this boundary come on through, all right, what am I also having to say no to? And the like. What is, you know, that good Agile question, what is the most valuable thing for me to do? You know, what's the most valuable thing right now? Okay. How does this serve the desired outcome for me, for my team, for my organization? What am I tolerating? Does anyone ever ask themselves that? What am I tolerating? I'm seeing some head shakes, but I'm also seeing some people who might look a little bit guilty. They're like, oh, yeah.
I think it's a two-sided question. So what am I tolerating from others and what am I tolerating from myself?
That's a lovely nuance on that. Can you talk more about that, Ken?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of reflecting on like the catch sooner game and stuff with the responsibility process, where it's a victory to actually see the pattern that you're falling into, whether it's blame or obligation, shame, justification, right?
Mm-hmm.
So am I, for example, because I'm notorious for fitting in the obligation realm, falling into that, am I viewing this as something I'm obligated to do, or am I viewing this as something that I'm choosing to do because this is the best thing to do in the moment based upon my values and the things that are important? Right. So am I tolerating my angst around obligation because I'm not willing to do a little bit of self-confrontation to say, you know what? No, this is my choice to be here. This is my choice to engage in this. And, you know, how I show up here is important for myself as well as for others.
I have to be honest, I'm in guilt so much right now because I think of all the cursing that I've done this summer.
And I think it's one of those things, it's like the catch sooner game, right? So you've caught it. That's a cause for celebration, isn't it?
Well, I only wish that I'd caught it 2 months ago, because everybody, I need you to fully understand the room that I'm in right now for the past 10 years has been wall-to-wall bookshelves and has had 2 spare tables in here to hold everything else. My nephew, when he came into this room and saw it, his jaw dropped because before he'd barely been able to fit in here.
Yeah.
And
that caused a lot of frustration, right?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk more offline if you want to. And what I'm trying to say here for others as well is that part of the victory is recognizing these patterns, because we all have them. Part of the victory is recognizing all of these things that we fall into. And there's value in celebrating the fact that we recognize it. And the sooner that we recognize it, the sooner we could do something about it. So reduce the amount of time from the time we fall into it to the time that we recognize it
and take a different path
is a victory.
Yeah. He brings up a great point there. Thanks, Ken.
No worries.
And I love this question. From where am I free, powerful, and at choice? Okay. What comes up for people when they hear this question?
Can I just, I mean, this is an interesting question, but I'd like to kind of try and pull things together. And I was wondering what you thought of this. And I can empathize with your situation, with you having to process all the material from your parents' property and things. In a similar situation myself, but we were earlier talking about boundaries and drawing boundaries, and we went to move on to Avery's responsibility process. But I was wondering whether you thought the responsibility process was a mechanism to redefine those boundaries. Giving you an example, for instance, you might possibly have said, well, I'm drawing the boundary, and that's not really something that I can do on my own, and that is a family situation. But having perhaps gone through the responsibility process, you've redrawn that, and you're then saying, well, actually, I'm accepting of this now, because perhaps you've gone through the responsibility process. You've been through blame, you've been through kind of, all the other obligation and all this kind of stuff. So I'm wondering what you thought about that, and is that, do you necessarily have that choice when you talk about drawing your boundaries? Are the two compatible, do you think? I mean, or have I got the wrong end of the stick?
Are the two compatible, boundaries and the responsibility process? I feel like that's a deeper think topic, but I love the question. I do. I love the question.
It's all right. We can process this offline if you like.
No, my instinct is to say that the two are compatible, but it's going to require, that level of self-reflection, of me really standing in and going, okay, what are my values in this moment and how am I going to live them? Where do I want to be on this? And maybe it's also kind of casting myself into the future. What will I regret? Or what will I wish that I'd done? Who is the person that I want to be in that moment?
So you're looking broader. So
I think we all, I think we do. I think we have to take that macro view.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are times to come down and be really in that moment, but then I think there are also times that we need to come up and expand and come from that larger view. And
Seth?
No, I just wanted to just to chip in on that, to your question, Preetam. I kind of can't help but feel that one informs the other. So it doesn't, you know, your view and your perspective on what your responsibilities are, then help you determine and define what you believe to be your boundaries.
And that's that deeper, that's that internal, you're going to go wrestle with that alligator there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rudy, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, when you said that macrovision, I remember your record here about the systemic leadership, and you were saying that in that recording about the identity of the group, right? And that identity of the system relies on who do I want to be in this relationship or in this system, or who do I want to be, what I want to be, and what do I expect from this relationship, from this, and maybe just to that's kind of the system awareness, right? And other powerful question is, how am I feeling this situation or in this task, or I don't know, and the feelings, the emotions are data. And those are like the main source of data to start this reflection, or and to set boundaries, to have this conversation, those feedback, and to set boundaries. How do I feel, etc., and how do I want to evolve in this relationship, so on and so on.
So I know that we're using, you know, my personal, you know, summer of rage cleaning as, you know, the example here, you know, but Rudy brings it, you know, looking at that macro, that system here, and knowing that as my father and I have been the loggerheads, you know, just like this summer, you know, he's angry because I'm getting rid of things. Okay. And I'm angry that he didn't get rid of them earlier. But even during that anger, we're over there saving pictures of one another, you know, that we might want later. And it's like, oh, as we come back in and out of that moment. Sorry. I think part of it, I wrote this talk as a response of so much of what has been coming up.
It's not easy. We're all dealing with aging parents, and everybody I know in my close circle. And Marie's just, my partner's just back from Glasgow. Our father passed away, so it is a good subject matter to explore in the company with friends. So thank you.
Yeah. I'm not saying any of this is easy, anyone. I know, you know, moving in and out of boundaries. Okay. Where are you picking up monkeys? But I guess I'm trying to also nudge, whether it's this system, your work systems, your personal systems, get you to start thinking about some of these questions. Okay. And how do you want to be? You know, where are you free, powerful, and a choice? Because I think it's in there, it's in that reflection, and in really being honest as you stand in those answers, that I think that's us nudging the system to where we want it to be. Is that making sense to people? Yeah. Thanks, Sath. I didn't know I was going to cry today. That's like an extra bonus for everyone. So these are questions.
A very powerful I guess, personal linkage for you between what you've just experienced in a lot of this subject matter, and I think that brings it very real. And yeah, like Donald says, it's a safe
for all
space.
of us.
We can all, many of us on this call can relate to what you're describing. So I think there's a lot of support and empathy for what you're covering and how you're feeling and what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a recall for all of us that the responsibility process or putting boundaries to monkeys is to have more authentic relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because without that, nothing of this has sense, right? So authenticity is very important. It's the philosophical outcome of all of this.
Yeah. So these questions here are some that I developed, some that I probably stole directly from Christopher Avery, some that I've bumped into, some that I've worked with, and some that I've just grappled with on my own. But I do leave them here as tools, as practices for you all. If you would like them, please use them and take them forward. Because I do think great questions, that is a way for us to nudge that system too, to stand there in them and to work with them. All right, which brings us to, we're getting close. Questions that you have for me that I can try to answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. That was great. Yeah, I'm sure there's the stuff. We've got about 10 minutes, so I've got plenty of time. No rush. Yeah. Thank you for that. Very insightful session. Lots of powerful questions, as you say.
Am I the first one to cry here?
No, of course not. I cry all the time. So can I take you back to the slide where you're talking about, shame and obligation and because I love the slide, right? So this might just be me, right? I'm going to put it out there. Denial. I kind of struggle with denial because how do you recognize denial if you're in denial? I've always kind of struggled with that.
It's a river in Egypt.
And there's that, yes.
So let's bring this back to this. Yeah, no, I do. So let's go back to my example of this summer. My parents have been in denial for more than 10 years that this work needed to be done. And everyone, we're not talking just about, some small work here. Right now I'm in very rural Montana. Okay. And it's not just a house. It's outbuildings, it's barns, it's equipment, it's tractors. This is no small undertaking, everyone. So this is, and my father borders on hoarding. He's not quite there, but if it were more compact, he might be. So, there's that tipping. He's in denial that this needs to be done. This is hard too.
I think with life as well, you get accumulation of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm probably half the age of your dad, and since we bought this house 10, 12 years ago, I've filled it with stuff. Gifts for other folks, my learnings, my work. So again, over the years, all amasses.
Right. That denial, though, that it needs to be done, or that, I can do it later. My parents are in their mid-70s. My dad had a stroke in 2013. You do the math, But I could have also, Sath, I could have studied and quit. Could have said, you know what? No, I'm not doing that. That's not my monkey. And that would have been an option too. In fact, it would have been, I had a lot of friends that were like, Erin, what the hell are you doing? You don't have to do this.
I think for something like what you're talking about, and yeah, it's a very powerful personal account. I mean, in some shape or form, all of these probably show up, don't they?
Oh yeah, sure. Looking at this, I'm like, I danced through all of these at one point or another.
Yeah.
You know? But we can also take this. I mean, do people also see how this applies to our professional, our nonprofit, those systems there too? And where do you recognize your own actions?
I was going to say that, yes, I definitely see how the journey of transitioning the responsibility with parents matches the work that I'm doing today. I'm working with a brand new Agile team that's had their process for 30 years. They're on a mainframe and they're being it's being shoved down their throat. And I'm coming to them and I'm like, take your 30-year process and let's try this. And
they're like,
yeah, they're like, no, we're doing fine. We've been doing fine. We don't need Agile. We're great. We're wonderful. And I hear my mom saying, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Like she'll go into the hospital. I'm okay. I'm like, whoa, I'm getting
we're in
this
the
message
hospital
all the time. Yeah. That, okay, where's my role? And I love where we went in the beginning of finding, okay, where is my role? Like, how do I use my superpowers and when do I not use my superpowers? That's my next question for myself, especially with this team that's like, when do I just have to, okay, go ahead and let's try it your way and let's let you do what you do. And then when we get to that shame place, because all roads always lead to that poor team, to that place, because they're so that's been their habit. And so they don't even, the awareness isn't even there. So I think it's a detangling of a very tight knot, especially when years and years of work has been put together. Same with our parents. They have had their system. This is where they have felt their safety. This is where they feel their, so they can't see where the time has come. But yet here we are in this midpoint saying, oh, we see the future. Let me help you get there. And so I'll take all the monkeys to help people get there. And
I'll take
that's
all
where
the monkeys. Yeah.
But
and
then
whose
nothing
voice
happens
was this?
that way.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I'm sorry. I'm Kathy Vega. Catherine
Hi,
Vega.
Kathy. I just your name isn't lighting up, and I'm like, yay, good. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just
no,
wanted to share
you're great.
that
was hugely.
It mirrors each other.
Yeah.
It mirrors all the time.
Yeah. What else is coming up for people here? Questions? We're down on the question. Yeah.
Another question. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Just one question along those lines is, some people don't want to take the choice to have responsibility. And I have to be okay with that, right? I can't force them.
Oh. I'm thinking about that for a moment. That is something I guess I would want to take to a coaching session with whomever that person is that you're talking about there. It feels like there's a combination of teaching and coaching for it. No, you cannot ever force someone into responsibility. You can't lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. Okay. But you can ask questions there and just kind of leave it. And that's why I think, Kathy, I believe so strongly in great questions, because I feel the majority of people will be like, oh, I suddenly recognize myself in that. And they're like, is that the behavior that I want? Well, no. Okay, I guess I want to change a bit. Then what does that look like? Did that help?
Very much so. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing your slide, Erin, because then we can just see everyone. It's quite
okay. Let me get through two things.
Have you still got something to do?
I do, Sath. It's very brief though. Takeaways. Okay. Own your decisions. If you decide to pick up the monkey then take care of it and feed it as well. Okay. You are responsible for your own boundaries. All right. And reflect on your actions and how they serve where and who you want to be. Okay. And I did leave you with two lovely infographics here. So y'all, I write every month. You know, one of my goals for 2022 was to write one blog post a month. And so far I've been religious about it. I've gotten it done. But I also have what I call a teaching folder. And I open that up and I share that with any and everyone. You just simply need to email me that, hey, you would like in. Okay. And up in those folders, I put things like infographics, sometimes like this, but I also put PDFs of mural boards that I create to teach a particular concept. And I might have exercises up there that I do with organizations or with individuals, and I might have facilitation plans. It changes each month, but I just make it, I open it up to everyone. You just need to tell me that you'd like in. Okay. That's all. Because this is, my reference section. Like I said, I do a lot of reading. I'm right now, like I said, I'm over in the behavioral science work. If anybody has not read Katie Milkman's book called How to Change, I do recommend it. It's quite good. All right. But there. And this is how you find me. There's my email address. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Yeah. And now I will stop sharing. Did everybody screenshot, you know, how to find Erin if you need to? Okay. Or you could just ping Sath and Donald.
Yeah, if you're happy to share the deck, I'm happy to circulate it. You're happy to share it.
Okay. Yeah.
We've got a few minutes. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
What's coming up here for people?
Thank you for your vulnerability around this, Erin, and playing in on that. Thank you for that. I think that helped.
I had not planned on that. I don't think anyone ever plans, you know what? I'm going to make myself cry today on a session with people around the world. Sign me up for that.
And yet you still had the courage to go there. I guess I just wanted to honor that. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think it was of service to the work. Like I said, a lot of my writing, you see me grapple with the concepts that I'm working with systems with, that I'm teaching, that I'm thinking about, that I'm trying to help people do that work on their own. So it's like, I guess I do the work right alongside you sometimes too. And that's what you're seeing here. Yeah. Sensitivity is not a flaw. No, it's not. But sometimes I do wish that I was like, not quite so. Oof. Yeah. So would you all like to end on a funny story? Would that help? So 7 years ago, I had breast cancer. And part of going into breast cancer when you're so young is that you get to see a whole slew of doctors that you would normally never see, including at age 42, I got to see a menopause doctor. Okay, so sorry if this is too TMI for anyone, but you'll live. Anyway, because I was also young enough, I had to get an injection every month to keep estrogen out of my system because that was what the cancer I had fed on. And the insurance company here in the United States did not like paying for this injection every month after a while because it was quite expensive. And so they kept trying to pull me back off it. And I remember my oncologist looking at me one day, she's like, "You're young and healthy." She's like, "You're going to bounce back." And she's like, "Oh no." So I had to go to a gynecologist and I had to have them do a hormone test to prove that I was, and I, you know, I've been off this shot for about 6 months now. And I go back into this woman and she's like, "Why are you here?" And I told her, and she's like, "So we need to do a hormone test." I said, "I got to be honest though, I think estrogen is back in my system." She looks at me and she's like, "Why?" And I said, "Well, number one, I'm getting a lot of nosebleeds again. And that was always, you know, that was always an indicator for me. Number two, I'm bruising really easily. And number three, I cried the other day because he got the 4th tire free." She looks at me and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It was a commercial on the radio." And I started to cry because the man got the 4th tire free. And she started to laugh so hard, she was crying because she's like, I've never heard a better explanation of it for that. So yeah, you got the 4th tire free. That also has entered the vernacular on some of my teams and the like, because they're like, oh yeah, 4th tire, huh? I'm like, yep, right there. So everyone, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that you all came to this. I know that many of you are staying up late and the like. So I'm happy to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you,
have questions?
Thank you. Nice
Reach out. Happy
I
to.
have to leave. Thank you.
For a few minutes, so
yeah, I can stay on. Like I said, I canceled that other coaching session. It was a good thing. I thought I had an hour, Sath. I thought I had an hour. I forgot that I get 90 minutes here.
Well, you've been here before. We're a generous bunch. We give you 90 minutes, but I know we're coming up on time, so I think you've answered a bunch of questions, and to be honest, I think you blew most of us away with your powerful account, your honesty, your vulnerability, and frankly, to me, you have for some years been an inspiration. So I think you amplified that some this evening. So this evening for me. So no, just really grateful for you coming back here and sharing a brand new talk. It's a very powerful subject. I think it will continue to resonate. Every time you deliver this session, and I think you've left most of us with.
If anybody has feedback on this, I would really appreciate it. For those of you, I know many have developed talks before and the like, but it's incredibly, it's a lot of work. So if people have feedback on it about how could this be stronger, what would be more resonant, what would you like to see more of? Please, you could either shout it out here, email me. I'm happy to. Feedback is always great.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody here will be happy to reach out to you directly and give you some. Well, anyway, just to say, it's great to host you again. Lovely to see you.
No, because I hear you're skipping out to go to Berlin with Aileen, to go to the karate match. Donald, Anne Marie, and we're going to go have dinner together.
Oh no! I figured it out. It's okay. I figured it out. So I fly back into the country on the Monday. So I will see you on the Tuesday on the basis I don't get stranded in Berlin. So fingers crossed.
Let this be fair warning, everyone. When I do travel, I do look up colleagues that I know in that particular area, and I might have dinner with you or tea. So just fair warning.
Looking forward to see you, but just before we run out of time, just to say, listen, thank you for the session. Thanks for giving up the time, and thanks for being brave enough to share this, new talk. And clearly, it's a very powerful subject. So, if you're all happy to, those of you still here, unmute and join me in thanking Erin for what was a fabulous session.
You guys have been remarkably generous already, so I appreciate that. But thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Really appreciate it. Be well.
Thank you, Michael.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for coming in for Cape Town.
That's a pleasure. And you had a really great talk, and I really appreciate your vulnerability and trusting us with that. And the stuff that you shared has been immensely valuable to me. So I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm so glad.
Be well and be blessed.
Thank you. Yeah. And can I see your feedback around the strategies around recognizing and working with the process, catch sooner, et cetera? That would be great. That would be, wouldn't it? For next time.
Awesome.
No worries.
Just before we do run out of time, just to remind you all, we do have another session for you. So this was a special one, and special it was indeed. We have another one for you at the end of August. That's ones with Jenny Langdon. So I can't remember where Jenny's based. Where's Jenny based? Or Belgium?
Netherlands.
So Jenny's going to do a great session on unity, and she's got a book. That one's also, very much around, vulnerability, and vulnerability being a gift. So, if you're interested to explore that particular topic with us, do please join us at the end of the month. And again, as you know, we've got a whole bunch of other sessions already in. So yeah, look out for those. If you've got anything else you'd like to share or shout out about, you're welcome to do it, or drop Donald and I a note. We're happy to publicise other people's events, promote things. We're all part of a global community, so we love helping each other out. So if you do have stuff, you're always welcome to reach out. We're happy to help promote it. But yeah, just to thank you all for taking the time and joining us and making it such a memorable session, sharing in, you know, Erin's topic and all the powerful ideas that she shared. And yeah, look after yourselves, take care, and good afternoon, good morning even, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be.
And good night.
And we hope, and good night, and we hope we'll see you again soon. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, y'all. Bye, everyone.
Take care.